Hi guys, Chris here with a comparison between basically the four Cherry Trail Atom 8-inch tablets that are currently out on the market. Now, there's two more that I'm not showing in this video. They have a high resolution screen, and that's the hi8 Pro and the Teclast X80 Pro. Those ones I don't actually have yet, but they're in another category because their screens have that higher resolution. So these models here all have the same specs. They've got an Atom X5 Z8300. They have 2 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabyte eMMC drives, and they are very similar when it comes to performance. This is the Geekbench scores you can see here that I have currently displayed on all of them. Hopefully you can make out the screen on the Onda v820w CH you can see is the poorest. But you see the scores, they're all around about the same, about 750 single core on Geekbench 3. When it comes to benchmarks, the performance of the Chuwi Vi8 Plus here is slightly better than the others, but they're all more or less about the same. When it comes to performance, there's only a difference of about 5% there. But you can see with the screens that this is the Cube iwork8 that has the best screen. They're all on 100% brightness at the moment, and the second best screen would be the Teclast here. That screen isn't too bad. The Onda screen is quite poor. The brightness just isn't there. And although the Chuwi Vi8 Plus here, the screen probably doesn't look that good, but if I angle it now face on, it actually looks probably about the second or third brightest. But for some reason, the viewing angles you see there aren't as good. Now, just to outline too a couple of key differences. Only one of these models has dual boot, and this is the Cube iwork8 Ultimate. You can flash that over to dual boot. The Onda's coming with dual boot soon, and I do think that Chuwi and later Teclast will be releasing these two models later on in dual boot as well. So eventually, all of these will be dual boot devices, but it's a pity that all of them are going to have 32 gigabyte eMMC drives on them, so not really that good. When it comes to storage, you've hardly got anything, especially when they're dual boots. As seen here on the Cube iwork8, you only get about 5.8 gigabytes free in Windows and about 7.6 I think it is in Android. That's just hopeless. Now I'll quickly run through the build quality of all of them. In terms of build quality, the Chuwi's the clear winner for me, and I'll show you why that is. We have metal trim around the outside, even though the whole build is basically plastic. The little trim around this they have on each side with the screws holding the cover in place is a nice touch. It feels more solid. It has this textured matte backing on it, and overall it's just so much better, I think, in terms of quality. You can definitely see that it is the winner there. Now the other models build quality is similar, but none of them have the metal around them. The Cube iwork8 Ultimate, it looks like it's got metal around it, but it's actually just a painted silver around this. This gives it a bit of a touch, a bit of a nicer build quality than the other two, the Onda and the Teclast. And I would say that this would come in as a second when it comes to build quality of the Cube. The Cube has something slightly different too. We do have a home button at the top instead of the Windows home button on the actual screen down below. There's a touch screen Windows home button. Now, cameras on all of them, they're all the same. They're 2 megapixel cameras. They all have HDMI ports, which is good to see, and they all have micro SD card slots. So again, very similar. The Cube has a textured white backing, and the Teclast here, the Teclast X80 Plus, I don't particularly like the build of. It's quite plasticky. I don't like this lipper edge around the outside, and the finish of it, you could even see like a seam in the plastic. Overall, it feels quite cheap. Normally Teclast, their build quality is quite good, at least in their Retina tablets and their Core M tablets, but this one, being their cheapest tablet, don't really like. Their buttons are also plastic. The buttons are metal on the Cube, and they are like a chromed plastic on the Chuwi. So the build of the Teclast X80 for me comes in as a third, and the Onda has this textured fingerprint swirl design on it that I'm not a fan of, because it seems to track dust and dirt in the grooves in there, and that's going to show up after a while, I think, of using this, especially if you're in a hot climate or something, and you do have hot, sweaty hands, or you're using this tablet a lot, then I think it's going to start to show that grime. It already has with me, and I've just been keeping this in the box most of the time when I haven't been reviewing it for my videos and whatnot. Again, another plasticky build, but the build actually probably slightly better than the Teclast, which is surprising, but it does actually have around here, you can see some of the seams or lines, sharper lines and bits on the plastic. It does have that home button on the front. The bezels are a little smaller too. Now the eMMCs on these machines, most of them have, apart from the Teclast, they have bwin brand eMMCs, and the speeds of them are quite different. There is quite a difference in there, and I'll show you that. So if I bring up now the eMMC drives, you'll see here now that overall there's a bit of a difference. The only one that has, the brand one is the Teclast, but the eMMC in the Onda is actually the fastest. Now this is going to vary from batch to batch, so I really wouldn't focus too much on this here, because what can happen is you could buy one of these and they could put a bwin, or they could put another, they could even put maybe a Toshiba in there or something like that. It really depends on the batches that they use at the time. So Teclast went with a Samsung. Chuwi's one brand at least that I know that normally seems to always stick to at least the very budget, cheaper eMMCs. The main thing to look at too here is look at this, the write speeds when it comes to 4K randoms. Horrible speeds there on the Cube. I mean, that's quite slow. So if you're going to be installing a program like a large program, or you're going to be installing I don't know, Photoshop or something, not you'd want to really run Photoshop on an Atom tablet like this, but the installation would take a lot longer due to those speeds there. So definitely the clear winner is the Teclast there, because you get random reads and writes, so there are 13 and 14 megabytes per second, which is good to see. Now just to talk quickly about thermals, the Cube gets up to 85 degrees, the Onda gets up to 85 degrees, the Teclast gets up to 80 degrees in my tests and benchmarks that I ran, and the best of them all was the Chuwi. Now the Chuwi got up to, I think, 78 degrees, so the thermals on the Chuwi are the best, but these ones definitely run too hot. Although they say that they don't trigger any thermal throttling, they're literally only a few degrees off from doing that. And the battery life, well, Chuwi is the best. You get close to about just over 4.5 hours. Teclast you get just under 4 hours. The Onda about 3 hours. The Chuwi about 3.5 hours. Not very good battery life. Now if you want an 8-inch tablet that has decent battery life, then I definitely recommend looking at the Xiaomi Mi Pad 2. That comes in Android or Windows. Unfortunately, it doesn't come in dual boot, but that is a very premium tablet, and definitely probably one of the best of the category that I've looked at, because it has a laminated screen, a retina screen in it, and very high quality build quality there, and the battery life, because it's got a 6,700 milliamp hour battery. These ones have either 4,000 or 3,300, which is in the Cube and the Onda. Oh, and before I forget, there's one thing too about the Chuwi. It has a Type-C port. Now, if you've seen my other videos that I have posted on this particular model, I'm not too happy about this Type-C port, and I'll tell you why. Because it's only connected up USB 2, so really what's the point of putting the Type-C in there if we have to use adapters and we're not getting any benefits out of it, really? So it's just an extra cost. It doesn't include an adapter in the box either, so you got the charging cable, but you don't have any adapters to plug anything into that. The other ones are all micro USB 2 ports, which I think the Chuwi should have been. If it wasn't going to be USB 3, then it should have just been a micro USB port there. Like I said, now audio quality. When it comes to audio quality, all of them, which is good to see, they support 4-pole stereo headsets with a remote and the microphones in them. So you can run their remote with Android, at least on the Cube, and control it. So this is the pin I'm talking about, the plug, sorry, that I'm talking about is this one here, not your standard stereo one, which the older tablets could only run. So that's good to see. Now, quality out of the 3.5mm headphone jack sounds the loudest and the best on the Cube. Second to that would be probably the Teclast X80H, sorry, 8 Plus, X80 Plus, getting confused here. That one has some very clear audio through it, and so does the Chuwi. The Chuwi doesn't have too much static or anything over the headphone jack. The Onda has a little bit, and probably lacking a little bit of volume too on the Onda. The Onda's really not the best tablet. I've also had problems with the Onda, and I'll go into that shortly. But I'll test out the speakers on them now, and I'm just going to record how the speakers sound on a different microphone. Actually use the inbuilt camera microphone here and see just how those speakers sound. Now I'll just do a loudspeaker test. I'm going to use the microphone from the camera here so you can get a better idea of just how the speakers sound on here. Now the soundtrack I'm using is something that's not going to give me any copyright issues within YouTube. That's why I'm using it. So first up is the Onda the v820w CH. Okay, now the Teclast X80 Plus. Now the iwork8 Ultimate. And the Chuwi Vi8 Plus. It's clear to me that the iwork8 Ultimate sounds the best, followed up by the Chuwi Vi8 Plus. The Teclast X80H probably has the worst sounding speaker, and the Onda also quite hopeless. Now, none of these tablets here really are a patch on the likes of the Mi Pad 2. Those two speakers it has in the back of that one, they sound probably about an extra 50% better than this. And the Cube also, the iwork8 Ultimate in Android is even louder, so it's something to do with those Realtek audio drivers, maybe limiting the speakers a little bit, but definitely this model here in Android sounds so much better. I just wanted to quickly mention the problems I had with the Onda, and that is the fact that the screen's a little bit washed out. You can see the viewing angles quite bad, even though it is an IPS panel. You see that change in them. It just gets darker. I've had this thing just randomly power off on me, and it did actually get up to 85 degrees, quite hot. But the problems I also had have been limited wireless connection, so an asterisk will pop up here and you can't get onto your wireless network until you go into flight mode. So put it in flight mode, take it out of flight mode, and then it will actually work. But the major issue is it's just powered itself off, so there's some sort of battery power related issue just causing it to randomly turn off on me now and then. So I can't honestly recommend this one at all. It could be just my unit, but you can take that risk if you want, but I think take a look at the other models I'm showing you here in this particular video. So to pick a winner, I think definitely it's the Chuwi Vi8 Plus. Okay, it does have that Type-C port, which is, for me personally, I don't know why the hell they put that in there. They should have just left it as micro USB. Besides that, I think it's not a bad tablet. Hopefully it's going to come with dual boot, and then of course if you want dual boot now, then you're going to have to look at the Cube iwork8, because it's the only model at the moment that you can flash over to dual boot, but you have to do it yourself. I do have another video. There is a guide on the website tectalst.com on how to flash that over with the BIOS and all the files you need, but it's not for everyone, of course, flashing. This definitely superior screen, best speaker, but the problem is the battery life there on the Cube isn't particularly good. You're only getting 3 to 3.5 hours because it's using a smaller battery cell. It's only using 3,300 milliamp hour battery, whereas the Chuwi's got a 4,000 milliamp hour, and the thermals are the best too on the Chuwi. So overall, I would go for the Chuwi Vi8 Plus there. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it wasn't too all over the place. It's kind of hard to compress all this information just into one little video here, but hopefully it was helpful for you, and see you back on the channel with more up and coming videos. Bye for now.